This is, you guys have been like brain melted all day. This is my like easy, we'll talk about war stories. This is like your warm hug at the end of the day before beer. I considered like after some of the sessions, especially like the graph one and Evan's LSA one, I was like, maybe we should just loop pictures of puppies and kittens and stuff. Yeah, so my name's Justin Kohler. I'm the product leader at SpecterOps. That is the team over BloodHound Enterprise and BloodHound Community. What that means is I manage around 35 people, engineers, infrastructure engineers, customer success, support, product design, people who I have the pleasure of representing before you, believe in what they do. Former Air Force, father of four. I love anything outside. It's probably because we stare at computers all day. So what we'll talk about today is Attack Path Management, what that means, what we've seen over the past 3 years, some lessons learned, and then where do we go from here? So what does the future hold? So let's start with what is Attack Path Management. 3 years ago, this guy, Andy, wrote a Attack Path Management Manifesto where we kind of put out this idea. We were in this whack-a-mole game of finding attack paths, maybe fixing some of them, maybe not, and just this repetitive cycle that we wanted to get out of. So could we come up with a strategy for, solving that problem once and for all? And we had some foundational principles that we put out. We wanted to be continuous and comprehensive, so not reactive. We wanted to have a very specific way we could measure risk, so not just it's bad and believe me, but like how bad is it? And we wanted it to be practical, right? So implement least privilege. How many times have we heard that? Like how, right? So 3 years ago, we came out with that, and the industry kind of listened. So we've seen a lot of folks pick up that message, which is awesome. That's what we want, right? We want people to understand that this is a problem and that it's a problem that we can solve. We've seen organizations like CISA say that you should use tools to identify attack paths. This was from a recent breach earlier this year, where they specifically called this out. Also implement least privilege, also all of that other stuff. Gartner, last year, this is an evolution of the vulnerability management program. They call it now, or they're trying to call it now, continuous threat exposure management. And they specifically reference attack path mapping being part of that strategy. The way we think about it is attack path management is really like this missing capability within your identity risk strategy. We've had tools like identity and access management, privilege access management, ITDR. These are all awesome products and also awesome capabilities, but they're not really solving the problem that we knew about. And if you're a penetration tester, you abuse year after year. APM also has a really familiar process. So what does this cycle look like to anybody? Does this look like anything? Vulnerability management, maybe? Very repetitive, right? Understand what you have, prioritize it, fix it, and then report out. It has clear benefits. So we've seen, again, it's kind of mentioned at the start with the principles, but we've seen a shift over to proactive, comprehensive visibility. If you've ever used BloodHound, you know that there's thousands of paths within most organizations, so we can't just fix them one by one. We're going to be here for years. So we have to have one fix that will sever multiple paths. We wanted to prioritize by a measurement that we could track back in math, not just it's bad, but this is how bad that thing is. And we wanted step-by-step remediation, so not just fix the problem, but show me where to click in the GUI, in ADUC, in Azure to fix it. And measurable, meaningful progress. So not like I have 70 issues last year and now I'm down to 36. This means like I had 100% exposure, meaning 100% of people in my environment could get to tier 0, and now I have 30. It means something. Attack path management, from our perspective, will be a new standard. Who works in an organization that does not have a vulnerability management program? Either you, oh, that doesn't count. Either you do, or you're too embarrassed to raise your hand. And I think that's going to be the same thing with this. Maybe not call it, who knows if it would be called Attack Path Management, but this problem will be a standard. All right, so what does 3 years of attack paths look like? So we analyzed 2 billion abusable configurations and behaviors. If you're at Rohan and John's talk just before this, graphs are hard. We've experienced that problem a lot. Seen a random smattering of things across Active Directory and Azure environments. Some of this data is really interesting, kind of just seeing the data points, but the more effective use of this is to actually put it to articulate some of the problems that we felt, but we didn't know why they were so bad. So if you've ever heard me or Andy talk, we use this analogy of a map, right? I mean, BloodHound was even built modeling Google Maps. The originally GUI was how, shortest path, find a destination, yada, yada, yada. So imagine your Active Directory environment as a map of the United States. And if you think about the map of the United States, you think, wow, that's really complex, right? How many different cities, villages and towns are in the US? And then how many roads connect those? So think objects and then vertices that connect those. So you can't really speak to the accuracy 100% of these figures. The first one came out of Google. The second one came out of ChatGPT because you could not find an answer for the second one. But if you believe these, there's around 20,000 cities, villages, and towns. And those are connected by 1 to 20 million roads. Big range there. And if I asked you how many routes from LA to New York, what would you say? Infinite, yeah. There's a lot. So now think again of your directory as a map. So how many objects or cities are in your Active Directory or Azure environments? That's every user, every group, every machine, group policy object. And then how many relationships connect those? There's a lot. And if I asked you the same question, how many attack paths? Well, those statistics, we've kind of figured out that the average domain is around 130,000 objects with 3.5 million relationships. So when we think, when we see those maps of just seas of attack paths when we run BloodHound, that's why. It's ridiculously complex. Okay, fun stuff. What does 3 years of attack paths actually look like? Not just statistics that we can use in presentations. So we've seen some things over the last 3 years. Some things that okay, we didn't think that we'd see that. We kind of wanted to forget that one. If you can't read that, that's domain users in the domain admins group. That was a really fun short call. Then it gets worse. And you start okay, maybe we don't deserve computers. And then you're like, yeah, we definitely don't. So this one, you might make 2 mistakes with this image. One, I'm cherry picking from the last 3 years, right? So I have all these engagements and I'm just pulling out the worst ones. When do you think that image was taken? Guesses? A week and a half ago. It happens all the time. The other mistake you might think of is, look at what that admin did. It's not their fault. It's really complex. Who's managed Active Directory in this room? My hand is up. That's scary. Who did it right? Yeah, I threw people into groups until they stopped complaining. We just didn't have the visibility, right? So people even trying to do the right thing, they couldn't see if they did it right. So here's some examples of I'm going to do tiering. There's tier 1, and they're a member of administrators. This is another one where they've done tier 2 and tier and desktop admins, but everybody points back to administrators. That doesn't really accomplish the goal. Even if you avoid the group nesting part, you still have these random aces that'll come back to bite you. So this is, again, it's really, really, really hard without visibility. This is some really interesting group nesting. This is probably the worst that we've ever seen within domain admins. Can't have any attack paths if everybody's already there. This is a backup software. So like it's taking backups of servers and workstations within the environment to make us safer interactively on every host in the environment. We're creating an incident, but we can back up from it. If you start looking at these long enough, you kind of create art. Anybody else a Battlestar Galactica fan here? Sorry, I know. I couldn't help myself. ADCS. So talked a lot about that today. ADCS gave new meaning to the word complexity. Fun fact, this was actually something that we wanted to get in July of 2021 when we originally launched the product. And at the time we were like, never mind, maybe in 6 months. And then it just kept getting pushed. It was so complex. So Andy, struggled for a while on this. And it was really hard. Jonas similarly helped him struggle on that for a while. Once we got the modeling right, finally, like much pain, figured it out how to put it in the product. And one thing I've been really surprised is how prevalent it is. So 2.5 years later, after Will and Lee's research, this is so, every environment that has our ADCS coverage enabled, 75% of them have just an absolute critical vulnerability. What I mean by that is like domain users or authenticated users, 100% of the domain has the ability to take over the domain in one step. It's pretty terrible. Fun fact, this specific example was from an organization and they had actually gone through a pen test the year before, and the tester found that some like ESC1 or escalation 1 was potentially in the environment, but they couldn't actually execute it. And so the directory team maybe chalked it up to a false positive. And we were like, no, it's definitely not false positive. So we sat one of our consultants down with the internal red team and walked him through it with the detail that we were able to put out in the product. And I've never heard a red teamer giggle so hard. He like put somebody in the domain admins group and just like giggled for like 10 minutes. And so yeah, to say this is solving a problem, I mean, that's probably something that would have sat around if we didn't show exactly how it was done and that it was a real issue. Lessons learned. So let's take some of those attack paths over the last 3 years and bear with me. We're going to look at them across organization size. So how large are you? Smallest organizations on the left, largest organizations on the right. And we're going to look at also maturity. So low maturity environments versus high maturity environments. I'm going to add another dimension here, the age of the environment. So how old, with the thought that like the older environment, the more attack paths, the newer, the less. We're going to look at this across on-premise, Azure, and those with hybrid environments. And then finally, bear with me, we're also going to look at those with internal red teams, annual pen testing, or limited pen testing. No, we're not. The truth is, we have organizations with attack paths and those that haven't seen it yet. It's been really surprising to see what we thought, what we knew were really mature, really like high-speed organizations and just horrific attack paths. And then very large environments there is no correlation. They affect everybody. Some kind of random takeaways. So Active Directory is still not going away. It's more complex than anyone imagines. That both leads into the problems that we find within Active Directory, but also like people's inability to move off of it. Everybody, I think, thought that they would not have it anywhere in their environment today, but it's still there. It's always worse than you think, and I wrote a blog post, I think like the first 6 months after we started deploying, where people would commonly ask the question, like, is everybody this bad? And it's like, yep, everybody's this bad. Don't worry, we'll get you through it. Something that's kind of interesting is not a lot of Active Directory. There's not a lot of new Active Directory training. We released our Active Directory Security Fundamentals course, but not a lot of people are trying to study Active Directory from the ground up, and those SMEs are kind of going away, right? So then what do you do when you find an issue that you have to get rid of? We've seen this affect a lot of different clients. And then common knowledge is not common. It's been really interesting, like you could be an expert in group policy and not have a single clue on how like access control entries work. Azure is still a foreign language. So the amount of knowledge to maintain is extreme, just because the like wide variety of products that Azure comprises is just so massive, and they constantly update it, right? That's a good thing. I mean, they're trying to get rid of flaws in the system, so that's good. But that means just like the constant update that you have to go through as an admin is ridiculous. Hybrid environments have to deal with the on-prem risk plus the password spray attack of cloud, and then the two combined together with like the hybrid paths. So it's really like a hard problem for people to deal with. And you can do a lot of homework to think that you're going to do it the right way when you initially deploy an application, and you could do it the right way. And then some feature gets inserted later that inserts a privilege that completely undoes your work, and then administrators just want to pull their hair out. Least privilege, not really possible without visibility. So we've never seen an environment that said, or that had it done right. Let's put it that way. So we always love definitive statements like, oh, we separate our admin accounts, you guys won't find anything. Okay, you might be the one environment, we still haven't found that one environment yet. And it's a real shock to people when they see how different it can be. This is a new problem. So a new problem without a clear owner. So who owns this problem? Is it a red team problem? Not really. The red team came out, as soon as we launched BloodHound Enterprise, the red teams all over the world were like, oh my gosh, we need it now. But they're really not the people that maintain it over time. It's really kind of a vulnerability management or risk and audit problem. And so watching organizations go through this evolution of like operationalizing this was very interesting. And visualizing attack paths or really privileges is really powerful for different use cases. So let's talk about Active Directory administrators and group policy. So when you read through a group policy object, it's not really obvious where it applies within the organization. If you can visualize that for somebody, it's really clear. Like just seeing a group policy object as it cascades through the OU structure is really powerful. Incident response, we have a lot of partners who will use BloodHound Enterprise post-incident to deploy after an engagement and shut down those maybe critical paths that were used for the incident. Mergers and acquisitions, we have a lot of customers who have basically forced this into their acquisition process where they analyze the subsidiary organization before they create any type of trust. So that's either Azure or Active Directory. Basically, you want to acquire the company, right, and not the risk. And then SOC enrichment. One of our first very mature customers that we onboarded did this. They, like let's say you have 4 different hosts within your environment. They all have like problems, like alerts from some random tool. Well, I can tell you that this one connects to something that's critical. So why don't we start there first? That was pretty cool to see what other customers have done with our data set. This is again post they actually operationalize the core attack path management. Okay, steps for success. I just realized I'm going blazingly fast. I'm at 43 slides. I think I have like 55, so it's going to be, but it's cool. Happy hours after this, right? So, steps for success. So it's a new capability, so treat it as such. Nobody's going to know what you're talking about, probably, unless you're a pen tester. You got to build a repeatable program with stakeholder buy-in. So you're not going to fix the problem yourself. You're going to need buy-in from IT, Active Directory, probably the Windows, the Azure teams. They all own the remediation from this. And for now, it's no one's fault. So nobody's, what I mean by that is, it's certainly not anybody's fault that why these paths get created, because you can't see it when you create it. But again, how many people raised their hands when they didn't have a vulnerability management program? I don't think, I kind of think that this is going to change soon. Start small. We've seen a lot of people, like when we first deploy, they get paralyzed. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like uncovering 20 years of problems, right, and technical debt. Start small. Fix one thing. It might not even be the biggest issue you have. Just start small and then roll from there. You'd be surprised at how that motion just gets repetitive, and then people are like, oh, okay, like I can fix this, then I can fix this, then I can fix that. And don't try to expand the use cases until you have the core thing solved. The biggest takeaway is over the past 3 years, we have proven that we can take back control. This has been super cool to watch. That issue, like a week and a half ago, and yeah, if you've put 2 and 2 together, did I start building my slides like 2 weeks ago? Yes. How long do you think it took them to fix that? Any guesses? 30 minutes, maybe. And it was probably 25 minutes of just talking through like how could that have possibly gotten there, and then 5 minutes to remove it. It was done on the call when we showed them it was there. And we've seen it over and over and over again across deployments. If you show people where the problem sits and you show them how it will affect their environment, they'll take action. I think what we didn't want to do was, again, just like make changes without any tangible result. Knowing how many attack paths we analyze, I can tell you that only like 1 in 17,000 have the actual impact that you're looking for. And that's what we're doing by choke point analysis. There's really only 0.02% of attack paths that actually matter. And if we can point out where those are in your environment, you're going to take action. Okay, where do we go from here? So what does the future hold? If you are not doing anything today, you should download BloodHound Community now and use it. We have a BloodHound, like a supportive community. When we were rebuilding this last year, one of the gates that we wanted to clear for ease of use in the product was, could I deploy it, myself? Yeah, I could do it. It took me about 8 minutes, but I could do it. And from that article right there that we wrote 2-ish years ago, those are super common issues that we see in every environment, community or enterprise, that you can action just using community product. So if you want to see what this looks like and actually take tangible action to remove risk, you can start there. If you've ever thought about engaging us on the BloodHound Enterprise side, please do so. We will show you what it will do, and if you let us deploy it, there's nothing like seeing it in your environment. And what does the long-term future look like? Or at least the next year. So you have 3 different priorities. Yeah, and I just really wanted to show you my ChatGPT generated images. So long-term, we have 3 main priorities, at least this year. The first is we have a lot of enterprise features that we want to give back to our customers. We gave a lot in terms of graph expansion last year. We developed the BloodHound community side, which allowed us to go faster for both our community and our enterprise development. So we're only maintaining 1 code base now. But we want to do a lot of things in terms of further granularity in the attack paths that we expose, reporting, letting you know of an issue without having to log in. The other major thing is continued graph expansion. So ADCS is going to be the gift that keeps on giving. Trust that you'll probably see continued expansion from there for the next 3 to 6 months. We've already introduced more escalations beyond what Will and Lee originally found. I think they're up to 14 now. That will probably, again, there's no shortage there. And Chris and Dwayne and Garrett in the back, the SCCM stuff with the NTLM potential support, that's going to add even more. Hybrid paths, if you're a BloodHound user at all, you'll know that Active Directory and Azure data in our products are 2 separate things. So we know that there are ways to go from one to the other, but we don't show you where those connections are. We're working on that right now. You should see that soon, TM. Definitely this year. And then finally, we want to go faster, not only for ourselves, but for the community. So you saw the CubeHound guys talk today. You saw Olaf, if you saw the Falcon Force stuff that he was doing with FalconHound. That's awesome. We want to make it easier for everybody to do that. Excuse me. There's some design decisions that we made earlier on that have added friction that we want to remove to enable not only our team to go faster in terms of further graph, like attack path primitive development, but everybody. And to make it a hard decision on whether you want to contribute to BloodHound or build your own thing. Excuse me, I cannot. Oh, okay, that's my last slide. Questions?
You said that the functionality of pointing out the choke points between Active Directory and Azure was coming. Do you mean just federated services, or are you talking about other forms of synchronization as well?
Anywhere where the two graphs can combine is what we're looking at. Right now we're looking at like password write back and syncing.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yes, this is a short answer. Other questions? We all just ready for beer? Cool.
All right. Let's give a round of applause for Justin.